Hello, my name is Nicholas Rivas, and I talk about politics and stuff. And today we're actually talking about the UFC event that just happened, UFC 288, Aljamain Sterling versus Henry Cejudo. The title is gonna get some people's attention, and I truly mean it. I wouldn't say something if I don't truly mean it. Aljamain Sterling is, at the very least, should be in the GOAT conversation when it comes to bantamweight. Aljamain Sterling proved himself and showed that he can hang with the rest of them. And funny enough, that same card showed that his accomplishments are nothing to be scoffed at. What occurred with Bilal Muhammad and Gilbert Burns showed that one of Aljo's big criticisms was the you fought a one-armed TJ Dillashaw. Well, so did Bilal versus Burns, and even though Burns is a scary guy and a tough guy, and I wouldn't take a one-arm Burns on even if I had a bat. I wouldn't take a broken Dillashaw either. So, Aljamain got proven to look good even by a fight that wasn't his. And on top of that, you have him with a pretty good win against Henry Cejudo. It was controversial, but Henry is no joke. And yeah, you can tell that Henry did have a lot of ring rust. Henry even said it himself in one of his personal vlogs that he just recently posted, that he felt like he just couldn't make the adjustments early enough. And yeah, that's a big factor. There's always going to be asterisks. But I'm so sick of hearing people say, like, he wouldn't have won if it wasn't for this or that. That's sports. Learn this now, because if you don't know this by this point, every sport ever, the story goes, oh, the Bucks were going to win this year, but injury. That's just how it always goes. There's never going to be a perfect scenario. John Jones fought with a broken toe against Chael Sonnen and won. And he said if the rounds went past the round it was in, it would have been a disaster for him. So let's be honest, the injury, fighting someone like Dillashaw with a broken arm, that's not his fault. And people walk into injuries all the time. He fought Petr Yan with a messed up neck. And I like Henry Cejudo. I think Henry Cejudo is a great fighter, and I was rooting for him. But there are a very select few who can come off of this big layoff and win. John Jones, GSP. There's all these very selected few. And even though Henry Cejudo is a genius when it comes to some of his fights. I mean, I was watching that fight, and even though it wasn't the most exciting, it was so cool to see him fight. I love Henry. And I think Aljamain's a great fighter. I think he's underestimated. I was seeing stats that he was the most wins in the Bantamweight division's championship defense, something like that. I think he's defended about as much as Dominic Cruz, or I think now it's more. So he's up there. And we can sit here all day and say he was getting ass beat by Petr Yan. Yes, that is true. Nobody is denying that. Petr Yan was destroying him. But he made the adjustments in part two. And so at this point, how else can we not argue that this guy has proven himself? Now his defense against Sugar should not be coming with, well, technically Sugar's, no. Sugar's a good opponent. He handled Petr pretty well. He's up there with the rest of them. And so if Aljo beats Sugar, he's got to be considered a GOAT, right? At this point, there's talk. You beat Henry Cejudo, who beat Dominic Cruz. You have a very, very healthy argument that Aljo's up there with those two guys. Because I would put in the bantamweight division Henry and Dominic Cruz very high. Now you got Aljo in the conversation. So that's the whole point. He should be at the conversation at least. And you can make them arguments that he is up there and he's going to do it. I mean, against that fight with Sugar, he should win. I think Aljamain Sterling is up there. I think he's proven himself. I think the conversations of these asterisks just don't make sense to me. I think that Henry Cejudo is a great fighter to have on your resume as a win. Even though it's controversial, and honestly, I kind of want to give it to Henry. I still think Aljo still held his own from being someone a fake champion by getting the disqualification win. He has proven that he should be there. That fight with Petr, that fight with Dillashaw. I mean, we saw it. A one-armed fighter should be on paper this easy win. And to Aljo, it kind of was. But to someone like Bilal and Burns, it was not. And Bilal is not like this shit fighter that everyone thinks he is. He is up there with the echelon. So let's be real here. There's not going to be an easy fight. And Aljo made it easy. That's impressive. Henry and him, I was giving it to Aljo, but then rewatching it and seeing the scorecard, I don't even think Aljo won. But if we're going off the scorecards, that fifth round did not belong to Aljo. That just doesn't make, Henry should be the winner if we're going off of the crappy scorecard. But if we're going on the real like rules, the significant strikes don't look as impressive when you watch the fight, so let's not use that. But I think Aljo had enough strikes, enough significant strikes, and even though Henry had some big good ones, he had less control time, and he didn't really do anything with his grappling. Whereas Aljo did have good significant strikes. He did have a lot more, even though I don't think it's as much as the stats say. So I think Aljamain should be up there in the conversation. He should be respected, even though I'm not the biggest fan of him, and I think he's kind of cringe, even more cringe than Henry. I think he's a great fighter, and I think the bantamweight is stacked with great talent. So we'll see how it goes, but I think this is a really cool time to see Aljo rise, and I don't know how long he's going to be in there, but he's earned a lot of my respect. Peace.